Thanks, Donovan, and thank you everyone who's taken the time to join us this afternoon or morning, evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jake Fraser. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at the institution, and I've been with the institution just over a year now, I think. And I'm going to be talking to you today about our digital modernisation, digital strategy, where we've got to. I'm going to include a bit of a potted history for those of you who maybe haven't heard me talk before, and I'll be providing some information into some of the concepts that get banded around within digital modernisation, digital transformation projects, and give you some insight then into what you can expect to see over the next 6, 12, 18, 24, and even further afield months. So please bear with us. And as Donovan said, please put any questions you've got in the chat, and I'll rely on Donovan and Kirsty to make me aware of those while I'm presenting. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen now so that you can all see the slides that I'll be talking us through. If somebody would be so kind as confirm they can see the slides, that would be great.
Yeah, I can.
Excellent. Okay, brilliant. So I'm just going to spend probably about 15 or so minutes running through these slides. And what I'll hopefully be able to do is give you an insight into where we've started and hopefully kind of tell a bit of a story as we go through. So for those of you who've been involved with the institution for a number of years, you'll probably have heard the word stratum before. This is the institution's key membership database. It is 25 years old this year. It's been in place for that long. And it's a off-the-shelf system that was provided or is provided by a company called APT and has been updated and improved over the years, but is still fundamentally a 25-year-old solution, and it is still in use today. In around 2010, the institution overhauled the website. Those of you who've been around quite a while will probably remember the old institution's website, which was something of its time. And back in 2010, this was moved onto a new platform. And what's missing in this timeline is in around 2015, 2016, when the new design language was brought out. And this modernized the website, made it more responsive to mobile devices, and also started bringing in a new way of looking at accessing some of the content. A couple of years after that, there was a project which probably most of you are not going to be aware of, looking at modernizing and replacing Stratum with a solution based on Microsoft Dynamics from a company called Silverbear. Now, regrettably, this failed as a project, and I think I'm probably it's quite important that we do accept that this failed. Unfortunately, you know, this is a common reality with digital modernization projects. And then in 2019, I'm just going to shift myself over so you can see this. We moved then to trying to build a different solution to replace the Stratum database based on Microsoft Dynamics, but doing it in-house. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Microsoft Dynamics, this is a CRM, customer relationship management software, and it's designed to be a key database of all your customers, which in the case of the institution is largely members, and provide all of the business rules around subscriptions and renewals, event bookings, and all those different touch points that members have with the institution. As you can imagine, the website in its current form ties very closely into Stratum. So events that get booked on our website either go into Dynamics or Stratum. Any changes to your account information on the My Account page on our website currently go into Stratum. The Near You website that many of you will be very familiar with is based on the same Sitefinity system, but with an older set of content, but links into Stratum. And that is probably one of the big challenges that I'm going to hopefully try and articulate over the next 10 or 15 minutes, is that integration piece. So as I showed on the timeline, from around 2019, the approach was taken by predecessors of mine to implement a new membership database based on Microsoft Dynamics 365. So that's in the cloud, provided by Microsoft. And what we've discovered, and what I've discovered and my team have discovered over the last kind of year and a bit, is that there are some ongoing issues with the solution we've put in so far. Some of you may have had issues with members reporting, for example, that unsubscribes aren't working quite right, or that they're not being subscribed to the things they expect. We've had issues where membership numbers have been duplicated, and in some cases, even data simply not being synchronized between systems. And this really impacts the member experience, and it impacts your experience as volunteers as well. That being said, we have had some success on the Dynamics platform, and I don't think it would be right not to celebrate those successes. Second on this list is the Committee Management Hub, which Donovan and colleagues have hopefully made you well aware of. And I think this is something that's actually a real success within the Dynamics platform within the last couple of years. We're also of note here is event management, which currently is limited to the events and member engagement teams program. However, we are looking within the next probably 6 to 12 months around the events program more broadly, and that includes the events on the Near You platform as it stands. But what's on this list is what we've achieved so far. And I have kind of made this point here that these were all built individually. And I think this is part of the challenge that we need to break away from. So what do we do if we've got all those issues? Well, actually, for me, we need to take a bit of a mindset shift here. We need to really change our thinking from turning individual tools and processes and systems and ways of working into digital systems, and actually moving them into a digital operating model where everything is designed around one way of working, one data record, one data model, making sure that if we collect data about a member, that we can report on it effectively, making sure that that complies with GDPR, making sure that we're confident when we're making decisions based on data. But to do that, we have to look at the processes that we currently have and how they work, how effective they are. And that for me is probably one of the biggest pieces of work that we're looking at over the next 6 to 12, potentially even 18 months, is really getting not just under the skin of the processes, but really picking them apart and understanding how volunteers, staff, members in general, members of the public, and any other kind of stakeholder the institution has all interact with the institution, and what kind of information they expect, what kind of data they might provide and expect back, and really how they get value from interacting with the institution. And the output of this should be a digital platform that is global and supports the institution's ambitions to be an inclusive and global membership body representing the engineering community. It needs to be scalable as we look to expand our horizons beyond the UK. And as I mentioned just now, it needs to add value, but also embody the values of the institution. And thinking about how we can make the digital offerings, really dovetail with the diversity and inclusion program that we're undertaking and is well underway and embedded within the institution, and recognizing that there will be needs that we can't anticipate and changes in the world. If we all looked 5 years ago and predicted what would have happened post, what the post-COVID world would be, none of us would imagine where we are now. So recognizing that the world changes, innovation is constant, not just a one-off, and we need to have digital systems that support that. And I think one thing which I'm a big fan of, and Donovan's probably heard me say this too many times now, is that I'm not going to accept that we should do things the way we've always done them. It may not be necessarily my role to change the process, but I need to help people understand that the way that technology works, the way that customers expect technology to work has changed. And that means that the processes and the systems need to change as well to accommodate that. Now, coming back to where we've got to, one of the big challenges we've got is this diagram on the right here, and I'm just going to shift myself over so you can see it more clearly. What we have here is what's called technical debt, and it's a diagram showing the above and below the waterline, if you imagine it as an iceberg principle, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We've got obvious challenges above the waterline. These are the things that are going to be common regardless of the type of system, but they're nonetheless time drains that we have to be responsible for, such as adding and adjusting functionality and keeping it secure and up to date. Unfortunately, there's a lot that even you as members and volunteers won't see below the waterline. And these are in blue the things that I would say probably have been some of the biggest challenges for me and my team over the last 12, 18 months is understanding the reasons why we have issues with performance, e.g. the website restarts that I know plague many of you. Understanding how things have been built in years gone by without documentation, and making sure that we understand how data is flowing between departments, between processes, and so on. And really, the point of illustrating this is to make a really clear call out that actually building bespoke is often very much a false economy. And if I was to ask any of you whether you thought that it should be core to the IMechE's strategic goals to develop bespoke technology, I think all of you would probably say that's not a core strategic goal. We are here to support registration of and development of engineers and technicians, and we're here to maximize your impact through yourselves and your volunteers and your and the membership at large. And being a software development company is not core to that. In addition, as the diagram illustrates, the burdens of maintaining those solutions are really significant. And so the question is, are the overcomplicated requirements that we often receive from parts of the business actually creating a spurious need for bespoke when actually we can achieve the same or better, and actually I really think better is the case, outcomes through buying and configuring software technology solutions that are built and maintained by the people whose job it is to build and maintain them. And to help summarize this, we've been using this kind of F1 pit stop idea within the digital strategy group that I'm co-chairing with a fellow of the institution, Matt Marson. And this strategy group is a subgroup of the StratCom, which is obviously chaired by Deputy President Giles and has a clear mandate from the trustee board to develop the authoritative strategy of the institution. The digital strategy group has been working extensively with member outreach, with market research, with industry analysis, looking at what should be the short and medium term strategic goals of the institution from a digital and technology perspective. So we've collected this body of research, and what we found is this F1 pit stop concept is probably the thing that we're going to have to go towards, which is that there will be a brand new car for the season, and there will be some disruption as we build and develop and then release that new car. And then every time we go round the track, we're looking at the data, we're adding features, we're tweaking, we're changing tires, we're adjusting variables in the system, in the hardware, in the software. And that is what we need to aim towards. And the reason we've got to aim towards this is because of what we've got right now, this picture on the right. And this is a really significant kind of illustration, I think, of what we have right now. This is at Birdcage Walk. This is our server room. This is where the Near You website runs. This is where the main IMechE website, most of it runs. Thankfully, Stratum is not in here. Dynamics, as I mentioned, is in the Microsoft Cloud. But there are big chunks of the infrastructure that you and your fellow volunteers and our members interact with every day, still running from that room. And as you can see, it's not been maintained properly. Now, I don't want to shift the blame or anything, because technology has a habit of getting out of control slowly over time. And I think, coming back to that point around the technical debt, that has built up over time. And actually, what we need to do now is realize that we have got to that slight kind of critical moment. We have to deal with it, but we have to deal with it the right way. Sticking plasters are not going to work. Just as we couldn't just replace one or two servers in that room, as you can see, and fix it. It's simply not possible. We have to take a much more of a big bang approach, and that's where the new car for the F1 season is the kind of example we're wanting to provide to people. But what I'd like to kind of say here really is around the vision of what we're aiming towards, and then I can give you a more detailed kind of insight into some of the things more relevant to you. The idea is that the Digital Strategy Group and StratCom in general, we are currently developing a digital strategy that builds on what we've achieved in the last 12 months, and it gains momentum. And what we're looking to do is change that mindset, as I said earlier, around a digital operating model across the whole of the organization. And that is not just staff, that is volunteers, and to a large extent members as well, and managing expectations from every type of stakeholder and taking input and feedback from every type of stakeholder. What we're trying to achieve is a program which has momentum, which has buy-in, and by 2025, which is, you know, there or thereabouts, 3 years away, we are aiming to retire Stratum. And that's a big ask. If I showed you one of the technical diagrams that explains how everything links together, Stratum is in the middle, and there are, I think, somewhere between 50 and 100 different pieces of code, services, software, systems, servers tying into that database. And so the work to retire it and to give us data that has integrity, that we can use to make decisions, that you can use to help inform how you run your regions, your groups, your divisions, all of that requires an enormous piece of work. And that's why we're being realistic here and saying 2025, around 3 years' time, is probably the soonest we can achieve that. But that doesn't mean that we haven't made progress along the way. That is the end goal, to retire Stratum. And to do that, there are lots of domino steps along the way. And part of that is the systems that you're interested in. So if I go back to the delivery 2019 to now, what we've got here is a mixture of member data, committee and volunteer data. We've got data for new members. We've got data relating to customers in our L&D training division. Most of the email marketing, bulk email marketing, with the exception of Lyris, is going through Dynamics. And as it says here, the free events at the minute. What we need to do is to understand all of these existing separate data sets and unify them. We need to take feedback from you and the chairs, the heads of, that can be representative and authoritative voices of the various groups, regions, divisions, and so on, about what you need from near you and its replacement, from Lyris and its replacement, and broader digital systems. Some of you may have access to Informa, for example, to do reporting on membership in the membership database. That is linked to Stratum. What do you need from that solution? And hopefully you're starting to get a bit of a picture here that because all of these systems link to Stratum, if we are to move them over and to modernize them, overhaul them really, we have to understand the data underneath, what data is coming out of Stratum, and then jumping to the next slide here, what is it effective? Is what you get from Informa effective? And if not, why not? What would make it better? And then how can we make sure that aligns with GDPR? How can we make sure that it that data is clear and gives you insight and allows you to make decisions based on it? And does all of the work we're doing, do the requirements that we're being fed, do the needs of the organization, the volunteers, do they align with the strategic goals? Do they help us deliver on those strategic goals? And if they don't, we might be having some quite tough conversations about specific requirements to make sure that everything is lined up in the right way to achieve the right goals. And it's hard to say now because it's an unknown, but we're working towards a point where everyone is very clear on exactly what things we are and are not doing digitally, but that everything we are doing is being done digital first, because it's simply not an option in this post-COVID world to think any other way, and it's simply not possible for us as an institution to plan for the next 20 to 50 years without thinking about how everything relies on the technology, the digital solutions that stick it all together. And so on that note, I'm going to pause, and the intention is to give you a bit more of a tailored update around Near You and Lyris, if that's okay, unless there's any questions that people would like to ask at this point. I'm happy to kind of break, and appreciate I've been talking for about 20 minutes, so I'm quite happy if there's any questions that have arisen so far.
We've got no questions in the chat yet, but I can see some typing happening.
Okay, excellent.
Oh, well, we've got one. We've got one that's just come through. Do you want to read it yourself, or me read it out for you?
Yeah, I've just got the chat open. So volunteer priorities for digital, is this from Graham, the question that I should be reading? Resolution of membership application process issues. So anything to do with membership application, I believe the responsibility of that lies with the various committees and groups, and I liaise through the head of department, Karen Bayliss, on most things regarding that. With regards to the business criticality, I couldn't comment without knowing more specifics. I'm aware of some issues relating to student affiliate applications, but beyond that, I would need to know some specifics to be able to comment. With regards to all events in a single space, that is exactly what the events platform I've just mentioned around being dynamic centric is there to do, is there to consolidate and centralize all the different events going on within the institution, around the institution, linked to divisions, regions, groups, as well as from HQ in one place. So I would say for the regards to your second point, Graham, that's absolutely where we're headed to, and the replacement of Near You would consolidate all of the events that go in there into our central events kind of database effectively. And regards to volunteer communities, this is quite a big actually piece of work that Joanna Horton, the membership and operations director, is working on with regards to how do we engage with our volunteer communities. And there was a really interesting panel discussion yesterday that Rob Porter chaired, which involved Alice Bunn, Joe Horton, and I believe Holly Porter, who's the membership director for the BCS, talking about exactly volunteer communities and how did the BCS engage with them. It's certainly something that is being actively looked at. I wouldn't be able to give you specifics on what the plan is just yet, because my department, as I hopefully articulated, is there to respond to the requirements of the business and to the organisation. And once those requirements are articulated to us, we can look at that further. Let's have a look. See. So Christian, thanks for your question. Going to hold working groups with the various stakeholders. Yes, we are, and that's actually one of Donovan's key responsibilities. Actually, has been helping me understand who it is that we need to be engaging with, particularly around the volunteer community, understanding the various boards and committees that have use of these systems, and making sure that we do regular call outs to people who have interest and capacity to come and speak to us about that. So yes, we are going to be holding those kinds of sessions. Whether a formal working group gets established or not is unclear. I'm not a fan of kind of extra groups for the sake of it. I think, as Alice Munn has probably said a number of times, and maybe some of you have been, we're quite a fan of looking at more task and finish groups. So we might bring groups together for a specific purpose of engaging, understanding needs and requirements, validating those against designs and proposed solutions, and taking it from there. Excellent. We've got loads of questions. It's brilliant. David, thanks for your question about significant risk. Yes, I would completely agree. I think the image that I brought up, I can bring it back on the screen, is a brilliant example of this risk. And many of you will have experienced system reliability issues because of the aging systems. We have a strategic risk register, we have operational risk registers. When we've had major outages and issues, I've been preparing reports for the exec, which obviously includes Alice Bunn, Chief Exec, and the trustee board to consider and review. And we are making incremental and steady progress on managing that risk and mitigating it. We understand the risk a lot better than we did when I joined. Back then, I think I'm not going to beat around the bush. There wasn't a digital technology risk register. So that's a piece of work that we've done, and we're building and refining and reviewing over time. So I think it's safe to say it's a journey, but we're making really good progress, and I feel like we've made excellent progress on that so far. And the risks are clear to the trustees, to the exec, and to the wider business. So and hopefully now if not already, to you as a volunteer community as well. Thanks, Neil, for your offer of helping to participate. That's really kind. And Donovan, thanks for clarifying with Christian's comments as well. That's great. Neil, with regards to your comment about Kevin Manning, Kevin is part of my team. So Kevin Manning has been around the institution over a decade. So knows probably, I'm sure, many of you very well. He's a great asset to the team, and his role is we're hoping to look to expand his role within the technology team and make it more proactive in terms of educating, training, and supporting you with the use of digital tools. But we will say his role is not, his more support, and where we are changing approach, which wasn't done as much before, is to bring in specialist business analysts, people with the real technical and business skills and acumen to be able to interview and understand and interrogate the needs of a non-technical audience and interpret that then in a technical way, so that software companies, developers, people like myself can understand it from a technical perspective and build solutions from that. And the use of business analysts for me is key, because if I come back to the dynamic solutions that were implemented over the last 4 or 5 years, I think it's safe to say that some of them have missed the mark, certainly initially. And unfortunately, I think missing that mark has been partly down to the fact that we've not had the skills in-house to help the business articulate what they need. And coming back to the slide I pointed out here, where is it? We need to understand what desired innovation and features are demanded by you as customers, because you are customers of the institution, as are all members, but also looking at changing the way we do things. And to do that, you need to have a really good understanding of where you are and how things work currently. And I think really it's hopefully many of you who are in your professional context will be familiar with the role of a business analyst, but we do think it's their work is pivotal in helping us establish where next, because without them, the voices, the feedback can sometimes be hard to channel. So hopefully that all makes sense. Thanks, Graham, for your comments. And Ian, thanks for your comment regarding the way that Near You is currently set up. And I completely agree. And I think it's a really brilliant example of how the world's changed in the last, probably not even post-pandemic, but actually, over the last 10 years, the increasing digitization and globalization of everything that the institution's doing. And I think it's kind of hopefully obvious that any replacement for Near You and the events database and so on would absolutely have that boundaryless model in mind. So absolutely take that on. I will think, unless there's any other specific questions that Donovan you want to make me aware of, hopefully I've covered off everything that everybody's asked so far.
Yes, no, I think so. I've just been commenting and responding to a few, myself, more specific ones that have come through.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to touch on the project focus group and member engagement, if I can.
Yes,
just because I think it is a very, very important step in the entire process, as we've discussed. So looking at what that development is like, and we've got the committee management hub, which is very much a foundation of data, which is, of course, quite important to enabling us to then move forward. But the next step that we are going to be looking at is the Lyris replacement, which isn't really a term we're quite comfortable with. And echoing what Jake has said, what we're looking for is to provide a new and more effective communications platform for volunteers to use. So taking that in mind with the focus group, it's so far a collection of about 40 members, which is taken from a much, much wider pool of about 400 existing users of Lyris, Sitefinity, and the different platforms. But, we've got a lot of that feedback. And I think Neil said in the chat, things have been reported over the years. Kevin Manning has been with the institution for over 10 years now and has been, gathering all of that, as have I, in the last 2.5 years as well. So we have an incredible amount of feedback to sort of find a starting point. But that focus group is very much the member representation. And again, they'll be encouraged to sort of seek wider feedback from their committees. And that's where it becomes quite interesting, because we've got international, we've got young members, we've got regional, we've got technical, and it's very much people who've got a foot in several of those areas as well, because they all have unique experiences of how they engage, communicate, run events. Of course, some common threads, but very much looking at how we can help them do that. So that's what our focus group is for, definitely poised for that. And again, so we'll do going forward, particularly with Near You. I, for one, don't want to see a replacement of it in any way, shape, or form. It's ghastly, if I'm allowed to say that, because it's not just the branding, but it's, I think somebody said already, it reflects how we used to do things pre-pandemic. We were geographically constrained in a way, but now that we do webinars and stuff like this, which are globally available, and sharing technical know-how and stuff that we're doing, we need to rethink how we broadcast and promote that as well. So that's probably the biggest change, and the most exciting, certainly, that we have to look forward to in the next few years. So that was my input. I just saw another question from Neil.
And actually,
yes, about the recording. It's a technical one. Yes, so this is hosted on Teams, this event, as well as the others within the conference, 16 in total. What we will be doing is converting them. It's a little bit of a process, but our events team will be converting them to essentially a YouTube video. So they will be available to anyone who wishes to view them. We will keep them together until the end of the year as a program for the conference. We'll be directing people to view downloadable material attached as well. So yes, that accessibility, Neil, it's a very good point, actually, is something we don't need to worry about, thankfully, but it will take us a few weeks just to get everything up and ready.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to say, I think Donovan could have briefly touched on it with the committee hub that's gone live within the last couple of months. I think the quality of the data has been one of the challenges that he and his team have grappled with the most, coming from Stratum, and I think it's highlighted for us the importance of really taking stock of what we've got and being really frank with ourselves around the quality of the data that we've got, because certainly from my perspective, and I really feel this is, a really important message to ring out across the institution. Poor quality data is simply not operationally acceptable. If we need to recognise that there are situations where we cannot get data, we should not be making data up. We should not be fabricating data. We should not be guessing data. We need to understand what data we can and can't expect from members, stakeholders, other customers of any kind. But to allow data to become outdated, to be inaccurate, or to be, operationally, unusable, it's not just a risk that we have as a business. It's not just a risk that we have from a GDPR perspective, but it's a blocker to us actually taking things forward, because you can have the best system in the world, but if the data that's in it is no good, then you can't use that data. You can't use the outputs from that system. So the data quality has got to be there. And Jo Horton, who I saw put a comment in the chat, she and I have talked about this at some length, as has Donovan and I, and at the exec and so on. It's, it's a really clear message that we need, as a whole institution, including volunteers, people interacting with data, making it clear that the quality of the data that we put in and the quality of the data that we ask our members to put in and our other customers to put in has got to be good. It's got to be worthwhile. Otherwise, we shouldn't be taking that data in. And I think hopefully, Dennis, that kind of somewhat answers your question around business intelligence and analytics. We do have analytics at the minute. It's quite basic. And as I said, it relies on the data that we hold at the minute. And unfortunately, there are some real quality issues, and we need to understand where those quality issues really are and identify that data and work out how we kind of evolve beyond those and move around those issues, because otherwise they will remain blockers for us. So it's a high consideration, and as I hopefully covered in the slides earlier, we want the systems, the solutions, the data on those systems and solutions to create value through allowing you to make decisions based on data and reporting, and allow that data to be useful to the institution, and in return be useful to the members and other stakeholders who provided that data to us in the first place. So it is very much a two-way thing, and I think part of the journey that we're going to have to go on is helping all of our stakeholders, members, volunteers, everyone understand that it is that two-way thing, and that if good data flows in, good results and value will flow out. And that really is something I do believe in very strongly. So hopefully that helps. And Neil, on your point just regarding GIF graphical, thanks Dennis for confirming. We have a whole heap of challenges around how things are currently filtered and the criteria, and we know that our website and the events calendar that we have on the main website is not enough. We know that. We know it's not good enough. And I think part of the journey that we're going to be on as we collect requirements, as Donovan talked about, the project working groups, and more broadly as we involve various stakeholder groups, such as some of you on this call today, is actually helping you tell us what it is you want to be able to filter on, but what feedback you're getting from your groups, and shaping how do we build that model of data for events, for membership reporting in the future. You know, I've spoken to Kevin a number of times, Kevin Manning, around some of the limitations that we have with Lyris about membership of multiple regions, and it's a great example. I can see that Phil Peel's joined, and obviously he currently is based in Switzerland, and he has therefore his primary membership based in Switzerland. Just to pick on you for a minute, Phil, apologies, but he would very reasonably want to know about stuff that's going on in London. And why can't he be a member of the London-based groups as well? And it's a limitation that we have, and it's examples like that that we need to be able to surface, and we need to be able to articulate so that we can build those requirements for what we do next. Not the replacement, as Donovan said, the Lyris replacement is a bit of a misnomer, but what we're trying to articulate is what do the future solutions look like? And we don't want to solutionize, we want to focus on what are the things you need it to do, what's the value that you need it to create, and allow us as the technology team and as the really brilliant team, Donovan from Kirsty, Joe, everyone around the institution, we're all we've really, I said I've been here about a year, and I've been so impressed by the commitment of so many people at the institution to deliver really great member value. But we need to know from you and from your members and your volunteers what it is that's going to create that value, and we're working hard on that, and that's partly what the digital strategy group's doing a first round of, and that's going to continue over pretty much indefinitely now, as we begin to understand more about what we've got, how we currently do it, how effective it is, and how we move forward. So I hope that helps. Wonderful. I'm very, very happy to take more questions. I'm also very happy to have chats with some of you if you'd like. I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn. I'm obviously on the IMechE email system. I will say I have some resourcing challenges within my team at the minute, so my availability is going to be limited over the next probably month or two as we work through that. As I'm sure many of you in a professional context will be aware, the resource, the job market, the talent market is a real challenge right now, and we're working hard on that. But you've also got Donovan, you've got Kirsty, you've got the whole IMechE team to help channel those requests through. And I think actually, for the time being at least, working through those project working groups that Donovan talked about is going to be the most effective way to get thoughts, feedback, suggestions heard, is channeling that through the kind of channels that we have for you there at the minute. And David, thanks for confirming a similar issue with Germany. Yeah, I do recognise it. Alok, thanks for your question. So Sitefinity as a CMS is here for the interim period. We're looking to improve the stability of it around things like site restarts, and we're hoping to be able to share some really positive news around the website stability in the next few weeks. I can't give a specific date yet because the subs run that was internal processes relating to the subscriptions renewal for 2023 took place at the start of this month, and that takes quite a lot of resource from my team. But we are hoping to have some good news there. Longer term, we do believe Sitefinity is a great product, but as was displayed in one of the diagrams, and Alok, you'll be able to go through the recording to have a look at this. We have a massive amount of technical debt, and we are way behind the times on the Sitefinity versions that we're running. These are security challenges, they're functionality restrictions, and so on. So I'm not going to say we're going to get rid of Sitefinity, because we may well keep Sitefinity, but move to much newer versions. And of course, any changes like that, any training will be covered through my team and through Donovan's team. So watch this space. But if there's any specific challenges or issues that you've got, and Donovan's provided the email address for it, screenshots or screen recordings are an amazing first step. Or if you want to just articulate in a bit of detail the challenge you face, Donovan or one of his team might be able to arrange a screen share or a Teams call, just one-on-one, and we can look at how we can potentially try and create those short-term fixes. And I think I'm a big fan at the minute of trying to focus on some of these short-term fixes to help keep things running stably. It has been unstable, it has been unreliable, and we do have these gripe points, and they're all very reasonable points. And if we can address some of these, like for example, we've also recently improved the website search so that you can actually find things on the website by searching, which you couldn't do prior to this summer, which was a real head scratcher for us. That's been improved. It's not perfect, but it's improved. And the website stability is something we're looking to improve. So if there's experiences like uploading images, let us know, and we can do our best to try and help you with those as well. We are listening, and Donovan's provided now his email as well. Please do provide that feedback, and we'll work with the business analysts and see what we can do to try and alleviate the immediate pressures as we work on that longer term plan as well. And yeah, I'm gonna pause there. Hopefully that's covered off that question. And like I say, there's a recording, so that all the slides that I presented, you'll be able to read back through once they are shared with everyone. I think, Donovan, I'm going to pass it back to you to wrap up, if that's okay, unless there's any other questions to answer. Oh, we've just got one. Ian, thank you. To be honest, Ian, I kind of hoped what I've just presented over the last 30, 40 minutes would have kind of articulated that quality of data, hugely complex coupled legacy systems with undocumented code, that technical debt diagram that you'll be able to refer back to, really gives you, I think, a snapshot of the issues. Thanks, Phil. Oh, he's disappeared already. And I think, Ian, probably the biggest thing is the understanding of what we've got. We've got a huge sprawling estate of technology delivering a huge range of different things. And we need to be able to articulate what we've got and also what we want going forward, because if we don't have both, creating that link, that journey, that path between them is basically impossible. And being able to move to a new solution when you've got all this data, all these event registrations, all this information about various regions and groups and so on here that you need to move over here, if you don't know what you've already got, moving it over to something else is really asking for trouble. So hopefully I've articulated that. But Ian, if you've been around for the whole session and what I've presented isn't clear, as I said, I'm very happy to for you to reach out either directly or through Donovan and his team, and we can chat further on that. But rest assured, we're uncovering the blockers and understanding how we tackle them, and that's part of the digital strategy group's work right now, is to articulate that and build that plan to unblock things to move forward. Lovely. I'm going to tempt fate. David, thanks for your feedback. Interestingly, the digital strategy group has done quite a lot of research about how not just the IMechE, but how some of our PEI competitors, they're not competitors, but fellow PEIs are using platforms, particularly LinkedIn, and we've got some quite interesting kind of outputs from that. But one of the things that we will be factoring in when we do that outreach and research with you is around how you are using not just near you but other platforms, because we want to understand that holistic view. And if something's working well in LinkedIn, we might actually strategically choose to partner with LinkedIn to do some of that work. And it's actually one of the big things that's come out of the digital strategy group so far, is that we should not try to be the next LinkedIn. We should not try to be the next Twitter. We should not try to be the next TikTok. We're going to be around a lot longer than any of these platforms. So we need to understand what we're trying to achieve and what the right platforms to use right now are, but building in that flexibility to change that going forward. You know, I think LinkedIn is a great example right now, but we don't know what LinkedIn's relevance will be in the next 10 years. So we need to build a platform that can be agnostic and be able to move around and be flexible. So it's definitely something we're factoring in, is what I will say at this minute. Neil, thanks clarifying your question. We'll make sure that's factored in, but appreciate all the feedback and questions that you've all been firing over at me, and hopefully I've been able to answer them to your general satisfaction. As I say, the conversation can continue. Really keen to make sure we capture everyone's feedback and provide you the reassurance that we're moving this forward. We're working hard, and you can put your confidence in us as a team to make the progress that you need, and we recognise that it's a need, it's not just a want, and hopefully that's clear, and yes, look forward to providing further updates as well down the track when the opportunities arise. So thank you, everyone. Donovan, I don't know if there's any closing remarks we want to make, or are we happy to
happy to just to thank you from me for going through all of that with us, Jake. It was certainly, again, not new information to me necessarily, but certainly very useful to see it presented in such a clear manner. So thank you, and thank you to everyone who was able to attend. Of course, the recording will be shared more widely, and I definitely encourage you to share it with colleagues within the network once it does, so they can get a better understanding. But again, Jake and I are both very much available to drop in, have further conversations, etc., as we progress. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Have a look at the rest of the content and the rest of today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone, for your time.